Now, if you're really worried, I suppose you could stick the card in a team bag, but whatever you do, please avoid top loaders and avoid especially penny sleeves. Penny sleeves are utterly worthless. I actually have some nightmare stories with penny sleeves, but anyway, proper use of index cards. What I do is I actually, on the lined side of the index card, I will write index cards for protective purposes only. Now, why is that? Well, there are a couple of ball players who will absolutely not sign index cards, and in fact, there are a handful who won't sign anything with index cards that are not marked as such. And I can tell you right now that on that list is Hal Gilson, who was a relief pitcher for the St. Louis Cardinals, and I think that Al Downing will also be hesitant to sign anything with index cards in it, or where you request him to sign index cards. And now, before you say, well, that's really stupid, well, no, the Major League Baseball Players Alumni Association actually sent out a memo saying, do not sign index cards. The real old-timers ignored it. Some of the younger guys who played in the 60s and the late 50s have switched to signing the lined side. In fact, odds are if you look at the index cards that you're getting compared to 10 years ago, now they're getting signed on the line side, and the reason is the MLBPAA is concerned with identity theft. I think that the concern is probably a little bit overblown, but nevertheless, it still exists, which means that you should not ignore it. And by putting that on there, I open up the door for, if somebody wants to sign it, okay, they'll sign it. I've gotten plenty of guys that have signed it regardless, or have written a note on it. But it also opens the door for a guy like Hal Gilson or Al Downing, where they will see that, just for protective purposes only, and they'll go, okay, and they'll sign the card. Now, another one that got a like, or got a couple of likes, was 5 harmless myths of through-the-mail autographing and 5 harmful myths of through-the-mail autographing. Harmless myths. Well, the first is that you have to handwrite your letters. I personally know a couple of dozen ball players, okay? They don't care if it's typed or if it's written. The one thing where a lot do get picky is you have to sign your name. Now, I understand that. It's a signature for a signature. But otherwise, everyone has said it's the content of the letter that matters. Now, again, it's a harmless myth. But I've heard ridiculous claims, and I mean ridiculous, saying that, player X will not sign at all if you send him a typed note. Well, I always send typed notes. I have difficulty writing because I have a hand tremor, and my handwriting dissolves after about a paragraph. Well, I have tried just about everyone who has said, well, he doesn't sign if your letter is typed, and I've gotten back everyone perfectly signed with whatever inscriptions that I've requested. So that's a myth. Another harmless myth. You need some form of protection for your baseball cards. Well, you don't. In 2 words, you don't. You can get away with index cards. You can get away with just tossing it in the envelope. In fact, this actually moves into... It's a harmless myth as long as you're using a team bag. But if you start using a top loader and a penny sleeve, especially a penny sleeve, it's going to turn harmful because you're going to get ink that's actually going to bubble no matter what it is. And if it's in gel pen, forget it. It's going to be a mess. So do not use penny sleeves or top loaders. But back to harmless myths, and by the way, I'll count that as a harmful myth. Another harmless myth that I've seen is don't send any more than 2 baseball cards. Most guys are perfectly fine with 3. Really, having talked to some guys, even the guys that are kind of stingy signers, they're fine with 3. That's the nice number. Personally, I usually don't send more than 1, but 3 is a good number. If you want to send, but if you want to keep on sending 1, keep on sending 2, that's fine. That's fine as well, because you're not hurting anybody. You're not hurting yourself either. Another myth that I encounter quite a bit is that ball players don't ever read the letters, so you can skimp on them. Let me give you a hint. Having spoken with Major League ball players, that one is total BS. They read it. As a matter of fact, even the guys that you do not expect to read it, and I'm not going to name them in this video just in case you get the idea of trying to test them, they read it. They read it. So that one, if you kind of skimp, odds are that the player will still sign for you, but it moves into harmful territory if you really skimp on it. And actually, I'm going to retract that and say that that is not a harmless myth. That's a harmful myth. Another one is that you absolutely must include, and this is a harmless myth, you absolutely must include not only a forever stamp, but also an extra ounce stamp. You don't have to do that. Now, granted, the ball player might decide to throw in something extra. That's nice, but you're not guaranteed it. And you're just tossing away an extra ounce stamp. So it's not harmful, especially if you get something back, but it's not really helpful either.